Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and joining me today is Ayodeji Awosika. Ayodeji, he's a three-time author. He's a TEDx speaker and a top writer on medium.com with over 50,000 followers on that platform. His words reach hundreds of thousands of readers each month and millions of readers per year. He also worked with us at Self-Publishing School to write and publish his first book. You'll hear a little bit about that. And then we're going to dive in today, kind of Medium as a platform. This is something we haven't really talked about on the pod. So what is it? Should you do it? Should you not? How do you do it? We'll learn a lot from his journey. So Ayodeji, sorry. Great to have you here.
Glad to be here. Yeah, it's nice to finally meet you in person. I've obviously been through the program and I've been in group calls and stuff like that, but this is the first time I've actually met. So yeah, nice to meet you, man.
Right back at you, one-on-one in the flesh, and it's been cool seeing being a part of your journey and just seeing your journey evolve over the years. Just with your first book, and then it's like I feel like your name just keeps popping back on my radar just in the years since then. So it's been cool to follow along. So I guess for starters, let's start at the beginning of your book journey. Why books? Why did you decide to write the first book, and ultimately why have you kind of made books a big part of your brand and your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So probably like a lot of other people listening to this podcast who just had dreams of being a writer, I've always had this dream of writing a book. I can even remember looking on my Twitter account back when I was in college, and I would say things like, oh yeah, it'd be cool to write a book one day, right? And a big part of my personal development journey when I started to turn things around in my life, professionally and personally, everything like that, was reading books. So then once I discovered writing as something I enjoyed doing, it was pretty soon after that I decided that I wanted to put something out there. And it's just kind of that, it's like that stamp you put on yourself that just makes you feel legit. It makes you feel like a real writer, right? Because often when I would tell people that I write, they would ask me, oh, do you have any books? So it felt good to be able to say yes and answer that question. And I think books are just cool because, even though I do a lot of blogging and writing, books are kind of those things that it's just a perfect kind of timestamp of your wisdom at that time. It's a really great way, just to see the quality of my work grow from my first book to my third. And it's just a really fun project, and it really pushes you to grow as a writer. So every time I've written a book, I've had to take my writing to an entirely different level, especially because you want to do better and sell more than the last one. So I think books are just a great way to push yourself as a writer, and a really solid credibility marker, whether you're a writer or if you're just someone who wants to use like content and marketing to promote your business. Having a book is really like that staple that kind of establishes you thought leadership wise. So all around, writing my first book and continuing writing more, some of my favorite projects that I've ever done for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the first book, was that the Destiny Formula?
Yeah, so the Destiny Formula was my very first book.
Cool. And I mean, you talked about wanting to do better and wanting to write better books and sell more copies of your books as you go, or with each book that you launch. And I know reviews they're directionally accurate. They're not a representation of sales, obviously, but they're also often directionally correlated. And so just looking at your books on Amazon, I'm on your author page as we speak. It's cool to see that you've done that. I feel like that's not often that each new book, as you've got the Destiny Formula at 98 reviews, you've got You 2.0 at 209 reviews, and then you've got Real Help at 302 reviews. So kind of cool to see, the end of 2000, or I guess December 29, basically the last day of the year on 2015. And then you have one in 2017, and then you have one in 2020. And then to see that stack with reviews book after book, that's cool to see, because often it's inverse, right? There's the compound effect of time. So newer books, it's tough to have more reviews because they've just had less time to get reviews. But I think that probably speaks to what you're trying to do, which is write better books and do a better job selling and marketing those books. Going back to the Destiny Formula, your first book, how did you find SPS, and why did you decide to work with us on that book?
I'm still trying to think exactly how I found SPS. I had just been, I think I might have been referred by someone else I had met online. Like over the years, I just met several other writers online. I spent a lot of time researching and looking for different ways to publish books. I bought a program once that talked about like using software to put books together, which was cool, but I still didn't have that piece of like, all right, how do I actually structure it from start to finish? So I bought that program, and it was good for like teaching me how to like format and like physically put a book together, I guess, but the writing and putting it together part, it still wasn't clicking. I tried to write a book on my own without any guidance, and it was catastrophic failure. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to put things together, and I didn't know how to subsequently publish it and put it on there. And I forget the exact mechanism of how I found you, but I remember when I did find the program, and I just loved the way everything was laid out. And even back then I was like, I'd never taken, like kind of a significant investment for me at a time for an online course. And I was just thinking, I'm like, is this really going to work for me? Should I trust this and everything? Well, but I just took a leap of faith, because I knew it was something that I really wanted to do. So it was kind of back and forth. I would look at the checkout page. So like, all right, go walk around for an hour, come back, walk. And then I was like, you know what? Pulling the trigger on it, and best decision I ever made. Not even just because I'm on here. Like I've taken a lot of different online courses, and self-publishing school is still to this day the best course that I've ever taken. Like it's pretty much, even in the cohort I was in, pretty much everyone in the program finished their books. I've never seen courses that had such a high completion rate. I was like, it's super step by step, and you literally have to like go out of your way to try to fail with this it's actually that good. So I went through, published the book through that program, and then every time I would write a new one, the great thing about it is with the lifetime access, I would just go back and refer to it, and then I'd be a better writer at the time, have more of an audience. So then continuing to use those lessons over and over again, super beneficial. So I forget exactly where I actually found it, but hell, I'm super glad I did. And the ROI has been incredible, to say the least.
That's awesome, man. That's really, really cool to hear. Thank you for sharing that. And it's cool to see, because I mean, everything's gotten way better since 2015. I mean, back when you were working with us, I mean, it's like that was the first year that we existed. And we've published about 6,000 or 7,000 books since then, which is kind of wild. And then I don't know if you've gotten a copy of the new book, but there's a lot of, when you do your next book, or maybe when you relaunch, there's a lot of new frameworks and principles and stuff. And this has been embedded into a lot of our content and all that good stuff. Well, cool. So let's talk about, I want to get to the medium piece, and I really want to do a deep dive there. But I guess before we do, what was the toughest part of writing your first book? And obviously you got 3 books under your belt. Any book writing tips or things that you learned kind of the hard way along your journey of writing multiple books that might be helpful for others?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that was both a challenge for me and something that I recommend that people do, like, and I follow the advice of the program, is just going through and getting that entire first draft done without any judgment, right? So it seemed like a daunting challenge to write an entire, I don't know how many words long it is, 30, 40,000 word long book, and try to stretch yourself to like continuously do it. So for me, I cut off all my other projects writing wise. I woke up every morning at the same exact time, wrote for the same duration every single day until the draft was done. Also, the big challenge was outlining and getting everything thought out before I sat down to put it on the page. And that was really helpful for me. And as my books got more extensive, I would be more meticulous with my outline. So for those of you who want to write a book, make sure it's going to be so much easier to write the book by actually thinking out what you're going to say beforehand, right? Whether that's doing an outline on a document, or some people like to use like Post-it notes and almost like storyboard the whole thing out. But if you have a really, really good outline, then the writing itself becomes a lot easier, because you're not just staring at a blank page. It's like, okay, I'm going to write a book now. It's like, no, it's probably not going to work well that way. But taking the time to outline things in depth beforehand, and then getting through that crappy first draft, so to speak, where you're just going to write it through. You're not going to give yourself any judgment. It's obviously not going to be the finished product. And honestly, once you get through the draft part and actually completing that mark, then going back in, especially if it was a good outline to begin with, the editing process is that much easier. And then you have a foundation that you can work with. So you know that you're a big chunk of the way there in terms of finishing it. So my two main pieces of advice would be really to solidify that outline. And then when you're doing that draft, I would do it consecutively every day until you're done. I did it on weekends. So I didn't take zero breaks. I didn't care if there was a weekend, holiday, nothing like that. I went straight through and woke up every morning at the same time and wrote out that draft before I finished it.
Good for you, man. That's awesome. The discipline. I love it. Hey guys, if you want to double click kind of on what he's saying here. So you may not even be familiar with this. We kind of the 8 milestones. This is part of the new curriculum. For those who are watching the video version on YouTube, you can see this, but this is in the new book published. And so there's 8 milestones. The first 4 is, we call the more writing method. So mind map, outline, rough draft, editing. And I love the piece that you just said, the better the outline, the easier the book. I think that's so true. And for people who want to learn more about how we do the outlining piece, just go to chapter 6 in the new book. It's called Published, The Proven Path from Blank Page to 10,000 Copies Sold. Chapter 6 goes into outlining. And then there's a new template, which you might not even know about this. This is new, but or newish, I guess. You can use it for your next book. But we got a book outline template generator that you press a couple buttons and it spits out like a 25-page pre-formatted Google Doc. That's pretty handy. But for anyone who wants that, you can find it in chapter 6 of the new book. So that's kind of lessons learned from writing your first few books. Now let's switch to, I mean, you do a lot of writing still outside of book projects on Medium. And so let's talk Medium. I'm really, really curious. I don't know a ton about the platform. So I know a decent amount, but I think I'm probably in a similar boat as most of our listeners. So you want to start maybe with what is Medium for people who don't know what it is, and why did you start writing on Medium to begin with?
Perfect. So Medium is a website where anyone can sign on and start writing on Medium. And then there are people who become members of Medium. They pay a monthly fee, and then they get access to articles that are behind the paywall, which anyone can put their stuff behind the paywall, right? So I actually discovered Medium quite a while ago, like more than 5 or 6 years ago. I was on Twitter, and at this point, I had already gotten accustomed to this idea of jumping on opportunities, right? So I was doing a lot of guest posting and stuff. So when I would hear a new guest post site to post on, I would pitch them, right? So I heard about this Medium site from this woman who used to write on Thought Catalog, which was one of the sites I used to write for a lot back in the day. And she was on Twitter. She's like, oh my God, my article is going viral. Like Medium, this Medium thing is crazy. And I'm like, what the heck is Medium, right? So at that point, I was willing to check out any website to feature my writing so I could, ultimately build my email list and like sell more books, things like that. So I hopped onto Medium. I wrote there for a little bit. Things were kind of lukewarm to begin with, but I went to the site and I just saw so many writers who were writing these amazing articles and they were getting so many views. So I'm like, screw this. I'm going to figure out exactly how to use this platform. So I just went through and studied everything about it, right? For example, there are these, like, I kind of call them, there's like mini magazines within Medium called like publications, to where you want to find those publications to put your work in because they have their own built-in audiences, right? So a lot of these publications will have anywhere from 50,000 to 200,000 people who follow that publication. So if you post it in there, you get access to be presented in front of all those people. So I started joining these top publications. I was getting tons of traffic, way more traffic than I was getting with any other strategies, from guest posting to SEO. Like my Medium blog quickly started to dwarf all that stuff. And for a while, it was just me writing articles on Medium to get traffic, build my list, and then do whatever back-end stuff that I could sell, books, programs, etc. But then in 2017, I believe, they released this partner program to where they said, oh, they're going to start paying writers directly for writing articles straight up. So the way that it worked was that you would put your articles in the partner program and you would get paid based off of how many people read your articles, based off of the amount of time people spent reading your articles. And the Medium membership was only $5 a month. So I was like, oh, okay, sure, haha, like they're gonna pay me to write. Like, we'll see what. I tried it as an experiment. I really didn't think much of it. Like the first month I did it though, I made a couple $100, which at the time was like, wow, that seems promising. And then I just kept doing it, and then the amounts grew and grew and grew. So I just went all in at a certain point. So I made I believe I made more than $10,000 a month writing on Medium, like 17 months in a row. I was the top earning writer on the entire website 6 months straight. I built a following on Medium of more than 90,000 followers. And I just checked my statistics. Since I started writing the Medium program, I've made more than $430,000 just by writing articles. Like no catch whatsoever, right? So are my results something that every writer is going to achieve? Of course not. But Medium is a great way for you to go onto the website. You can write articles, get paid directly for them. And then some other cool things it's really generous of Medium is that they allow you to still build your audience along with making money. So you can write articles behind their paywall and get paid. They still allow you to add calls to action to your email list if you want to build your subscriber base. They allow you to republish content that you've already posted elsewhere. So you could copy and paste your blog post onto Medium and get paid for them. And then they also allow you to credit your articles back to your blog. So if you want your SEO juice to remain on your personal blog, you can do the redirects and all that stuff. So there's literally zero downsides to writing on Medium, even if you just wanted to copy and paste your stuff and you didn't want to go full-time writing on Medium. It's basically like free ad revenue at that point, right? So I've been doing that for the past couple of years. I've used Medium to add more than like 40,000 subscribers to my email list from the traffic I was getting there. And then that allowed me to have a bigger audience to where my second and third books, because I had such a big following on Medium, and then I had the email list that I built for Medium, the sales of my second and third book were much higher. And then I could also go on Medium during my launches and like write articles that were promoting my book. And there was a lot of people who knew me on Medium and I had that extra credibility. I had met other writers on Medium who helped me promote and launch some of my books. It was real easy to build launch teams with all the assets and people that I've built there. So really, there's no downsides to doing it. I've been doing it for so long. I've mentored several people through making thousands of dollars a month on Medium, getting them more than 100,000 visitors per month on their Medium blogs. So just imagine if you can convert that, pretty well with your calls to action, your email list, the possibilities are really endless. So I'm really surprised that a lot of people, it's funny. I've been on there so long that it seems like, oh, everyone knows. And a lot of people don't know about it at all. So I would say definitely bring your stuff over to Medium, especially if you have a pre-established catalog. Because I know a lot of authors use blogs to build up their email list to sell more books. It's like, hey, if you already have the content, it's a no-brainer to start posting it there.
And so they'll allow you to, so basically what you're saying is they'll allow you to post, let's say I've got a blog post and I've written and published a blog post on my own site. I can publish that on Medium and I will not get penalized SEO wise by Google for having duplicate content.
Correct. And you can add an automatic redirect to your website. And that's another SEO strategy I've actually used. So for example, I write an article on my personal blog here, and then I publish it on Medium. I credit it back to my personal blog with, they call it 301 redirect for those who are not super into SEO. But let's say that 10 people link to my Medium article here. That link juice passes through and I get those 10 backlinks credited to my personal blog. So I'm not huge into SEO because I'm not like big on doing a lot of outreach, but I do have some good SEO going on my website just because I've passively collected backlinks from reposting my stuff onto Medium and then crediting it back to my site.
That's really smart, really interesting. How do you with the duplicate content side of things, is Medium just not indexing their pages? Is that how that works? They're not SEOing the stuff on Medium, or how do you avoid getting a content or duplicate content strike with Google if you're republishing?
Right. So the 301 redirect prevents you from doing that, to where when the result comes up, it'll pass through that one and go to your blog. But in general, my thinking with SEO and from a lot of the things that I've studied, really the duplicate content penalty, from what I understand it, that is for more of blatant just spamming of your content all over the internet, so to speak, right? So there's a lot of different websites that syndicate content. For example, like Business Insider syndicates content, Forbes, all those websites do it. So Google is aware that content that blog content gets syndicated. And as long as you're crediting it, excuse me, back to your original piece, there's absolutely no problem. But yeah, the main duplicate content penalty was for a lot of people. They were creating like spam affiliate websites where they're kind of publishing the same content over to like hundreds of different blogs and things like that. But yeah, syndicating your content across platforms, totally fine in Google's eyes.
Got it. That's really interesting. I know we're getting kind of into SEO land, but it's fast. I mean, we do a lot of content marketing at self-publishing school. So it feels like, even just as you're saying this, it's interesting to think about what it would take to take our, some of our most popular blog posts and publish them on Medium. I want to unpack a few of the things that you talked about. So you talked about Medium publications. You talked about making money via the paid writer program. I think it was $10,000 a month from Medium and for 16 months in a row or something like that. You talked about building an email list of over 40,000 subscribers from Medium. That's pretty wild. So let's unpack this maybe a little bit at a time, and let's maybe start at the starting point. So who is this for? It almost strikes to me as like a dip your toes in the water and write a few articles, or go all in, or maybe it's go all in or don't do it at all. Like, which authors listening to this would you say, hey, this is something you need to do? And what level of commitment would you recommend for them in terms of should they get started? Should they not? How many articles to post, that sort of thing?
So I'd say that this would be for the type of authors who plan on using blogging as a content marketing strategy for their books, right? So if you're like some people, they just want to write books. Like I know some people, like they serial publish stuff on Kindle. They don't really mess with doing blogging and stuff, and that's fine. But I know there's a lot of other authors like me who use blogging to build up an email list to ultimately sell more books. So if you're that type of person, then I would suggest using Medium. And if you're doing any sort of blogging whatsoever, I would suggest you use Medium. And if you wanted to get started, honestly, let's say you're one of the people who are actually trying to create a real revenue stream through Medium as opposed to just reposting your stuff, then I tell people that you want to be in that sweet spot where you are publishing a handful of articles a week. Probably about 2 to 3 is a sweet spot that I tell my new students to go through if they want to start earning revenue over. It takes a couple months to build up, but once you build a name and you build a following on Medium, you can start to earn some decent figures. And anyone who wants to write, and a good thing about it is that you get paid to practice. And I think what happens with a lot of writers, I can definitely remember how I felt in the beginning, was that you would be doing, like, I was doing so much writing and I was building up my email list, and like I had the books. But then I went on to think about other things like, okay, do I need to create programs? Do I need a coach? Like, well, how am I going to get all this back end stuff set up? And I was able to do that because, I had the drive and ambition to do that. But I think a lot of beginning writers, they really get kind of flustered and frustrated with all of the tech and all the different things you need to learn in order to do that. So some writers, they might not necessarily want to learn how to create an online course and coach and do these email funnels and landing pages and all this different stuff, right? Some of them just want to write and get paid. So what happens with a lot of my students is they'll come on to Medium just because they're trying to practice their writing. Like, they really don't have that much experience. Then once they have a following, once they have some money that's come in their pocket, and then once they have an audience of people who, when they put something out, it would be a lot more viable, right? So for example, my first book didn't do as well as the second one simply because I had an email list with X thousand people on it ready to go the next time I launched it, right? So if you're wanting to build an audience and if you're the type of person who wants to really have a writing habit that you use over the long term, then Medium is for you. The only people I say it wouldn't be good for it would be the ones who, like I said, I had some friends back in the day who they did primarily serial publishing, where they just focused on publishing books, which is a totally viable strategy in and of itself. But yeah, if you have an interest in blogging or if you want to use it as a content marketing strategy, definitely give Medium a try.
Got it. Nice. And I mean, the good news, if you've already written a book, you've written a bunch of blog posts or a bunch of Medium posts. In this case, they're your chapters.
That as well.
Right. And so if you could publish parts or excerpts or that sort of thing to expedite the process. So I love what you're saying here. Practice, and it's a good opportunity to practice in public. I'm assuming it's pretty low tech versus if I'm starting a blog and I've got a WordPress site and I've got all this stuff. So it's kind of like, all right, I want to do some blogging, but I don't want to go full tech with it. And so it's almost like a good starting point before going the full blog route, if you choose to do that down the road. And then it almost seems like there's two, you can do it to grow your writing experience. You can audience build, or you can say, hey, I really want to make money from writing on Medium. I would imagine if we were to 80-20 kind of the general audience of people who use Medium, it's probably going to be, most people are going to fall in one of the first two buckets, I would assume. And then if you want to make money via your writing, that's going to be a more long tail, like you've really got to commit to this. You've got to go all in and make this a part of a dedicated part of your long-term strategy.
Yeah, top earning writers on Medium, it is 100% tail distributed, and you have to put in work, and that has to be a conscious primary goal of yours if you want to be one of the big earners on Medium. 100%.
Got it. So I guess a couple questions here to unpack this. Just, all right, you've written a bunch, you started building a following, you started building an audience, you got traction. And actually, let me back up to the getting traction piece, and I'll go into some of the monetizing. How did you get more traction on Medium and grow your followers there? Do you have 2 or 3 things that work the best, or 2 or 3 tips that you would give for people who are looking to grow traction?
Yeah, the one thing I would say, it sounds kind of cliche, but it's like actually doing the work to get better at your craft. That is really the way that it works. And it's like there's a compounding effect on Medium, and there's also an algorithmic effect on Medium, right? So any article that you publish on Medium, it could get picked up by Medium's editors. They have an editing team. There's this process called curation. And if your article gets curated, then it gets further distribution. Medium sends it out to their email list for people to look at. So the more often you show up, the more often you're on the radar for people, for readers. Fortunately for me, I had a very unique name, right? So getting in front of people, that was easy. But same thing for the editors. If you continue to show up over and over again and get curated more often, then your articles have a higher probability of taking off. But the interesting thing is that you don't even have to have a large following to write viral articles. I've seen writers who didn't have a ton of experience, but they hit on a good idea, and Medium is looking for good ideas, right? There's no law that says just because you have X amount of followers, you can't write articles that are successful. Are your odds higher if you have more followers on Medium? Well, 100%, right? But over time, there's a compounding effect to where the more you write and the higher quality stuff you write, and getting into the top publications is another viable strategy. So there's basically 3 different levels of publications, I'd say, on Medium. So publications are independently owned by creators. So you could create a publication if you want, right? So there are these different publications that are made by independent editors, and they all have different difficulty levels, right? So there are beginner friendly ones where you're more likely to get in, but you're not as likely to get as many views as you would publishing with a top publication. So if you want to get into a top publication, you improve your quality of your writing, have some samples that you can show them from some of these lower tier publications. And then if you get into these higher tier publications and you publish with them more frequently and build a relationship with them more frequently, that's when you can really start to get a lot of views. But in general, regardless of what tier you're on, you want to start getting into publications pretty much right away. And it doesn't really take much. As long as you get to the point where you know how to write an article that flows decently, that follows the basic blueprint of what a blog post is supposed to look like, compelling headline, well broken out subject matter, you can get into some of these entry level publications pretty much from day one. So then you want to get to a point where you're 100% in publications, publishing all your stuff through there. You want to start rotating through different publications to see which ones are the best fit based on the content you put out, based on the following level. Like, even if you want to get more meta, like one other consideration I tell people is that you want to look at the concentration of writers in a publication. So for example, there might be a publication that has more followers than this one, but the ratio of readers to followers is more concentrated maybe in a medium-sized one that features fewer writers. So you get more access to the readers because you have less of the pie to kind of get divided up, right? So I'm always experimenting with different ones. And then even when it comes to publications, look at how the publications are ran. Like some editors are more motivated. So for example, maybe there's a top publication to where maybe they've gotten a little bit complacent, but there's this medium-sized one where their owner is like really going out of their way to promote. They're sending constant newsletter blasts of their writers, are doing featured article sections for the day, for the week. They're formatted really well. So those are things you want to take into consideration as well. And then the last piece is really being a participant of Medium. That helps you get followers very quickly and helps people recognize you. So for example, I get a lot of, if I tend to see a comment or a series of comments from somebody on my blog post, and they're actually thoughtful and they're not just like, hey, great post, man. It's like, but they're actually adding their own 2 cents. If I keep seeing their name over and over and over again, well, then I'm just going to end up following them, right? So then I'm always looking for writers who are hungry and who I can tell are actually engaged. Then I usually go out of my way to help them. And that's how I met a lot of the top writers on Medium, just by putting my best quality work out there. And then we would comment on each other's stuff. And next thing you know, we're sending each other emails. Next thing you know, we're doing Zoom calls and we're building the community. So one thing about Medium is that it's a community-based platform. And the more you want to become a part of the community itself, like be a fan of the writing as well as a writer, that's going to really help you succeed too.
That's awesome, man. That's great. These are great tips. Get better at your craft, write more consistently, get accepted in publications, use kind of, I talk about this related to PR and stuff in the new book, but related I call it the rungs of the ladder. It's like you've got your C-level opportunities, you've got your B-level opportunities, you've got your A-level opportunities. So kind of like working the rungs of the ladder with publications, get in publications, publications have distribution. It sounds like a lot of what you're saying is very similar on the SEO side of things, the keyword research and difficulty and that sort of thing of, okay, is how much traffic is there for these keywords or around this, in this case would be around that publication, what's the competition level for ranking that article and that sort of thing. Can you talk, we're running to the end of our time here, but can you talk how to turn readers into subscribers or book buyers? Do you have 2 or 3 tips for that and how you do that?
Absolutely. So you've probably alluded to this in your own teachings as well, right? But one of the things that are good for collecting email subscribers is having, a lead magnet, right? So you want to have something valuable in exchange to give away for an email address, right? So it's going to be something related to whatever your content is about. So that could be, that could be a resource list. That could be a checklist with step-by-step information for how to implement your advice. Some people have gone so far as to even create like mini online courses and give them away as free downloads. So you create your free lead magnet, you create your call to action at the bottom, to sign up. You want to write something more clever, but it's essentially sign up for my list and you get this free thing. But yeah, you want to learn how to write a strong call to action to get people to sign up. Then you also want to make sure you're writing articles that people want to read all the way through to the end, because usually the publications, they'll allow you to do your call to action, but you got to put it at the end of the article. So you got to get people to read the article to make sure they get to the call to action. Then you send them to the landing page, you get them to sign up. And then anyone who signs up to my email list, I do the welcome email. And then pretty soon after there's an offer that goes to the book. So I create the lead magnet, then it goes to the landing page, and then I have a funnel that sells my book to new readers when they join the email list.
Got it. So the main call to action is the lead magnet, and then you're using that lead magnet funnel and follow up to transition into a book purchase. And then that's the main way to go from reader to subscriber to book buyer. And I would assume you maybe also, are you allowed to have stuff like in your byline? Are you putting the lead magnet there? Or are you linking up your books? What do you do there?
Yeah, you can. So I usually put my call to action there at the bottom, but you can put their rule based. They don't have super hard and fast rules, but it's just like, don't be egregious. Like don't put like 27 links in your byline. But I've often included direct links to my book and the email list sign up at the same time. So you could do that. I had done just like having my book itself as the only thing I put there, to say my name, I'm the author of like Real Help. That's my latest book that I was trying to sell. But yeah, I tend to find it converts better when I actually get them to sign up to the list and then do like quick intro email. And then I'm pretty sure I offer the book right away on like the second email. But yeah, I still get sales from just adding the book link in there as well. But yeah, definitely getting people on the list to eventually go through that funnel and sign up for the book is usually the best way, or at least the way that's worked well for me.
Cool. Any knowing what you know now, any parting tips specific to Medium and recommendations for people who are thinking about trying it or who are just getting started?
Honestly, in general, I mean, Medium's a great platform, and getting started, like my piece of advice would be to get started on it right away. And just in general, to get things started right away. It's like I've had students who, they'd see emails or the offers for my program and they'd kind of sit on it. And then, they join 6 months later, and then they'd start getting good results from me. And they're like, oh, maybe I should have started 6 months ago. Right. So it's kind of like that, that ancient Chinese proverb, whatever, best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Second best time to plant a tree is now. Right. So that's the same way with anything, like all of your writing projects. I'm sure that I know so many people, and I'm sure you can attest to this. So many people have this aspiring writer dream, and like, it's just some of them just take a lot of time to get off the fence. And I'm like, hey, the quicker you get off the fence, the quicker you're going to be able to start writing and improving your craft to where you can have these amazing, phenomenal results, right? So I've been able to go from, in the past couple of years, I started out writing a couple articles, doing, writing my first book, a kind of little experiment. But now I've been running my own full online business for almost 4 years now, right? And it was the fact that I got started back then that I'm able to get where I am now. So you guys need to get started as soon as possible. And the one thing I would tell people is that concept of practicing in public is so key. I come across so many writers. They have all these ideas. They have these pages and pages of notes. They've had these drafts that haven't seen the light of day. And what I will tell you is that, in my opinion, your drafts, your notes, your ideas, if they don't see the light of day, they don't count. They don't count. They don't count for anything. And you're not going to be able to develop your skills in the way that's going to make sense to really improve your quality unless you expose it to the public sphere so that you can get some feedback and get better. So get off the bench, guys. Like, people want to hear what you have to say. And a lot of people are worried that people don't want to hear what they have to say, but you just have to learn how to say it the right way. So from what Chandler teaches and how to structure a book in the way that you package it and you title it to get people to read it, was the same thing as a blog post. The headline's the equivalent of your book title, right? You want to learn how to do that to get people to click. You want to learn how to package your stuff. So it's not that you don't have things to say, it's that you need a little bit of the tweak in the package you put around it. And once you figure out that part, it's really not that hard.
That's awesome. Ayodeji, this has been awesome, man. Really, really helpful, really, really practical. I'm very interested in this, even just for self-publishing school and how we can implement this as part of our content marketing strategy. So where can people go to find out more about you, your books, your Medium training? Where's the best place for people to go?
Yeah, so my website is ayotherewriter.com. So it's AYO thewriter.com, and that houses all my Medium content. I do have a free 5-day email course that I offer as well that teaches people the ins and outs of how to be successful on Medium. So I can provide that as well. And then all my books on Amazon, you can just type in my first and last name and find everything on Amazon related to me. So those would be the areas that you can find my stuff.
Do you have a short link or an easy link people can go to for that email course? Yeah,
let me look it up. I have it here.
And while you're pulling that up, guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this this interview. If you're interested in working with us at Self-Publishing School and kind of following in Ayodeji's journey, and I mean, obviously he was one of the first people that worked with us way back in the day in 2015. We've published a ton of books since then. We'd love to chat with you about your book, your goals for your book, your next steps, and how we can help. So go to self-publishingschool.com/apply. That's self-publishingschool.com/apply. And then I've got the link here. Thanks for sending that, Ayodeji, for the Medium or the 5-day Medium course. We'll link that up in the show notes. And can they also find that on your site?
Yep. So when they go to my site, it's like the first thing you'll see. So
perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, man. This has been great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Finally glad to meet you, and I had a blast doing this.